Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. And over Facebook chat, I've got Keely Zynda, or the Creative Nugget, as she prefers to be called. Hello.
Hello.
So straightforward. Just hitting it off right away. Super serious right out of the gate.
Yeah, just hey. What's up, people?
I love it. I love it. Keely, you and I met actually at one of T. Galexi's shows. You had been hired as the kind of photographer there, and I was in absolute awe of the lengths you would go to get a one in a million shot. You jumped in Lake Superior at one point with your camera. You were up on the balcony at another time, and it blew me out of the water. I've done photography myself off and on for the last 17 years, and just kind of seeing the lengths that you would go to get that shot, it was awe-inspiring. So let's dive in to Keely, the Creative Nugget. You had mentioned right before the interview that you also are a musician. You also do videography. Is there anything you can't do? Let's jump with that.
I'm not a very good dancer. But I do dance like no one's watching, so I don't know.
Yet to be determined, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I was in dance when I was younger, and my mom said that I was very fun to watch.
Okay.
And I think that was her nice way of saying that my technique wasn't the greatest.
Oh, I wouldn't take it at that. I would take that as a compliment.
Yeah, well, I played basketball after that anyway, but yeah, I take risks like that, shooting all the time. Like, it's very much a part of my creative process and, like, my approach to, like, photography and capturing. I was actually shooting a video for Teague that day.
Okay.
And it's, I'm grateful for insurance on my gear, so I can take those risks. But yeah, a lot of the times it's really paid off. Like, I'll get really cool, like, angles and stuff that I wouldn't be able to get otherwise, and, I've also found that, like, me going those extra lengths, it leaves an impact, like, on my art, but also whoever I'm working with, they just trust me that much more, that they know I'm going to get the shot because I will climb stuff or whatever, and then you also just never know who's watching, and then you end up on a podcast.
Perfect. I loved how you segued that in. That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, like, I'll scale rafters and stuff. Like, I mean, hopefully nobody at First Ave is listening right now, but I've definitely climbed over. There, like, on the second floor there's like, you can get up into the rafters, and there's like a railing, and I've climbed over it a bit, and I, like, will hang on with one arm, and I'll, like, lean over and, like, get the shot, and then I'll climb over before I either get noticed or scare myself.
All right. A wonderful risk taker. I myself am not really a risk taker, but that's me. I like taking shots right from the audience and kind of capturing the audience as well. But anyway, to each their own. And you're definitely above and beyond. That's absolutely amazing. Is kind of taking risks in your photography something that you've culminated throughout the years, or is this kind of something new that you're trying out to see what works?
It's definitely been a day one thing. Like, I was climbing the stage back at Main Street Taps in Stevens Point when I first started, like, shooting and stuff. I attribute it probably to having ADHD, that I'm kind of impulsive sometimes, so if I have an idea, I'll just run with it, and then later I'll be like, oh, that maybe wasn't the safest, but it works, so I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely been a day one kind of a thing.
Yeah. Fabulous. And you had said that you kind of started out in Stevens Point. Did you go down there for school, or do you hail from there?
So I was actually living in Wausau at the time, and I would head down to Stevens Point because it's about 30 miles south of Wausau, and um, I did my first 2 years of undergrad at UW Eau Claire, and I just wasn't ready to be living in like traditional college life. So after my first 2 years, I decided to transfer out, and I didn't really want to go home, like to my hometown, which is Austin, Minnesota. Um, so I'd always spent a lot of time in Wausau growing up because that's where my dad's from. So like my grandparents live there, my aunts and uncles, all of my cousins live there, and like some of my cousins had started having babies. And then my cousin Katie, she's 5 years older than me, and she's more of like a sister to me, and I always really looked up to her. She was in the process of buying a house when I was moving out, and she's like, well, if you want to move in with me, like you could help me out. Like I'll charge you low rent and like put that towards the mortgage and stuff. So yeah, I decided to move there, and I actually went to nursing school, and I just left healthcare for a number of reasons, and I picked up a camera, and I had a lot of friends that were musicians and artists, and they started just encouraging me to start showing up to their shows and shooting, and then it just kind of all snowballed from there. Like they'd bring me to festivals, and and I started meeting more friends and more bands and stuff, and that's how I ended up down in Stevens Point. I think I was shooting for Dig Deep that night that I was climbing rafters there as well. But so yeah, I guess that's kind of how this all started.
Excellent. What led you up to Duluth?
I was home during the first part of the pandemic in my hometown. I was getting ready to go into festival season, so I got rid of the apartment that I was living in, and I was gonna stay at my parents for like a month or two before being like gone a lot. And then the pandemic hit, and I was stuck there. And yeah, some of my friends, guy friends, or some of my friends, dads own this company called Superior Cannabis Company.
Oh, yeah.
And they opened up a store up here. So a bunch of us moved up here to like just work and hang out and stuff, and I liked it, so I've stuck around now for 2 years.
Yeah, there's something about Duluth that just kind of sucks you in. I came here for college, oh gosh, back in '08. I'm going to date myself here. Back in '08, and if you would have asked me back then, I was getting out of here. I was going to go live in like New York or California, something.
Yeah.
And now it's 2022, and I'm still here, and now I own a house, and I'm married, and yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess. It's a good place. Like I was early in my like photography career. I mean, I still think I'm early in it. I've only been doing this for 3 years. So when I came here, I was still, just learning a lot about, the music industry, also like being like a professional photographer and stuff. And Duluth has been an incredible place to cultivate, like as an artist, and especially a young artist. The amount of support that I've been given from the artist community blows my mind away. Like, I don't know, I just had like a really successful, like busy season. And I've just been like sitting with myself in like an immense amount of gratitude, just being like, like as an artist, nobody owes you anything. People don't owe you liking your art. Like, and that doesn't mean that it's not good, but people don't have to work with you. People don't have to contract you out and stuff. And just, yeah, the amount of support that I've been given, and like people either giving me opportunities or like recommending me to other groups and organizations, and like the amount of encouragement I've been given, and like I couldn't rave enough about everybody, and there's too many people to list that I owe thanks to, that I feel like I maybe won't name names in fear of leaving somebody out.
Right. Yeah, I can
Hurting feelings.
I can attest to that as well. There definitely when I was starting out in the artist scene, whether that was doing interviews or photography or even kind of dabbling in the band scene, just a lot of encouragement, a lot of support, and yeah, it taught me a lot. I definitely owe a lot of what I do to a ton of people in town. So yeah, if we started listing everybody that ever gave us encouragement or support, we'd be here for a couple days.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So, Kaylee, you also call yourself the artist nugget. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I just am creative, I guess. I mean, my main medium is photography right now, but I dabble in videography. I also am a musician myself. I don't really show off like any of the drawings or paintings that I do, but I draw and paint quite a bit. Um, and I just have like kind of found that I have like a knack for creativity. Like I can kind of just pick stuff up pretty easily and like figure it out and just like I my brain is just like like if you ever wonder what I'm thinking about, it is just ideas. Like it's just constantly like wheeling up like whether it's like a photo concept or like a large like project idea in my mind like or maybe like a zine idea. Like there's just I could sit down and just pump out like I like write them down for ever. So it just yeah, I
Yeah.
just like a creative manifester, I guess.
Very cool. So you kind of hit almost all of the above for the Duluth scene anyway. What kind of music do you like to do?
Um, I've really been getting into fiddling. I mean, I've played the violin my whole life, but I've been really getting into like moving from like classical style to like more fiddle style playing.
Okay.
So like I've been really getting into old time music. Like I like the repetitiveness of it and like you can kind of just like zone out and just get into like repeating the A and B patterns and stuff. Um I mean I shoot a lot of bluegrass and a lot of my friends are like bluegrass musicians so they've definitely been getting me into like that. But I also really like blues style playing. And yeah, I'm just kind of I also like doing things with an instrument that you wouldn't typically do.
Okay.
Like I play the mandolin as well, and I like kind of finger pick slash like claw hammer it, which isn't like a traditional picking style on like the mandolin. But I don't know, I like it, so I just kind of like doing weird things, I
Yeah.
guess.
Do you play with anybody
Yeah.
else at this time, or is it kind of just a solo?
Yeah, right now, I kind of stick in my room a little bit. I mean, I'll play with my friends here and there. Um, I like at festivals, especially in like the folk and bluegrass scene, there's a lot of picking circles. I mean, kind of what you think of as like the late night ones, but there'll be ones like during the day and stuff, and I love those. And also anybody that is interested in learning how to like play with other people or just play music in general, I highly recommend just jumping into one of those because that's like the best way to learn how to play music and stuff. So I like just hanging out with my friends, I guess, and playing with them.
Yeah.
More like low pressure. I just, especially as like now that I'm transitioning to being a full-time working artist, I found that there's great value that like since I've kind of started monetizing off of one creative outlet, having other ones that I do just like for me without like any pressure on them of like, paying my rent with it.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And let's talk about kind of that journey into becoming a full-time artist and a full-time photographer. That is really cool. That's absolutely amazing that you can turn that dream into a reality. I mean, so many people, have these dreams and have these goals, yet they're still doing a 9 to 5, and then they do
Yeah.
that on the side to pay the bills and to pay rent and things like that. That's very cool that you've been able to turn it and kind of make that leap for yourself. Was that kind of a
Yeah.
tough journey to go through? Was it more of an easy transition for you? What was that like?
Oh, it most definitely was not easy. It's terrifying. It's definitely like a leap of faith, and you gotta be okay with being uncomfortable in like many different ways. Like it's uncomfortable pitching an idea to maybe a publication or a festival or like a band itself. Like being like, oh, okay, like it's like an ego thing a little bit where I'm like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know if I'm good enough, or like, like what if they say no? And like, I mean, it's not like it's all, especially right now where I'm like still building and growing. And like any new business owner would feel this. It's not like I'm rolling in the dough right now. Not yet. I mean, that's not the goal either, to be rich. But yeah, it's just like you gotta be okay with maybe getting rid of like some creature comforts in order to like make it sustainable. Like, for instance, I used to have a really nice Jeep. Like I loved it, and but it kept like like the maintenance started getting really expensive, and I like ended up selling it, and I downgraded to like, I mean, some people might say she's shitty, but I love the van. But I got like a really cheap van that I found from another artist for like $1,000, and I was like, you know what, I can I can handle like not having a super nice car, but that means I don't have a car payment, and not having a car payment means that that money can go towards new gear, and new gear means better art and stuff. So it's like where I'm saying like being okay with being uncomfortable for a little bit. It's like you're gonna have to make decisions like that, especially if you don't come from like a trust fund family where
Right.
like you're kind of funding all of it in order that you can make it work. And uh, especially in the beginning too, there's a lot of just figuring it out, and there's a lot of figuring out the ways that you could have done something smarter or better and stuff. But that's just kind of a part of like learning and stuff. So it's yeah, it's just a lot of trying to figure it out kind of. And but
Yeah.
I've had a lot of help along the way, like not only encouragement, but I've picked up mentors along the way that have given me advice, either business wise or, well, yeah, like business wise, and just kind of how to do certain things or insights. So yeah, I don't know.
Sounds
It's
like
definitely
that's
a process.
Yeah, it sounds like it has been a process and definitely a journey for you. You had mentioned earlier that you went to school for nursing and did that for a while, and I'm assuming that's where the really nice Jeep kind of came into play, was you had that 9 to 5
Yeah.
or 2 to 10 or whatever nurses do. Some
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
they work all hours, let me say that. But it kind of sounds like that you got fizzled out and you kind of made the leap into the artist realm. And I think not enough people talk about the sacrifices that full-time artists have to make. You know, using the
Yeah.
example of you and your Jeep. But I mean, there are even more sacrifices beyond that as well. You know, if your
Oh yeah.
friends are going to go out and spend a weekend, you know, in wherever, you know, it may not be that you're going to do that weekend. You know, there's lots of those kind of creature comforts that you give up in order to make the art happen. And it sounds like you've got a
Yeah.
really good handle on all of those things, and you're making it happen for yourself. So hats off to you. That's absolutely amazing. That's really cool that you were able to make it happen. Did you go to school at all for photography, or has it been something that you've cultivated just throughout time?
I just did it. I was a huge science nerd in high school, and like, I mean, and then in college, obviously, like, nursing takes up your whole life. And like, I mean, I was in orchestra growing up and like choir, and like that was kind of my creative outlets, but I never had any sort of formal photography training. I'm entirely self-taught, and that as well has just been figuring it out along the way.
Yeah. Very cool. I love that. I know quite a few other people that are self-taught, and I think being self-taught, you really get the opportunity to let your own kind of creativeness show through and shine through. I myself am not self-taught. I went to college for it, and I just remember getting into arguments with my professors about
Yeah.
how I wanted to do things versus the textbook way, and yeah,
Yeah.
path.
Especially with art, I don't want to be told what to do. Like, it's my art. I'm gonna create the way that I want to, and it's like if you don't like it, just don't look at it.
I
Uh,
love I love that attitude, and I think definitely in any creative endeavor, whether it's music, photography, or even theater, you have to have that mentality. It's it's interesting. It's kind of a catch-22 almost.
yeah.
You want people
I
to
don't know.
like your stuff, but
Yeah, I've had a few friends that like are either in art school or have gone to art school, and it just makes me really glad that I didn't go to art school. And it
oh,
like kind of makes me frustrated, I guess, like listening to the things. And if there are any art teachers, I'm just like, maybe you guys should like. I haven't heard very many good things about like, especially professors and stuff. Like that's not entirely true. I have heard some things like some of my friends having ones that like are they love them, but I've heard a lot of like yeah, like being hypercritical stuff where it's like I would like to if I like I'd like to see or hear more feedback that in like kids going to art school that it's not so much teaching them how to create because they're going to create no matter what and the way that they are. I would like to see in like curriculum teaching art students how to make it sustainable, like how like teaching kids how to be a working artist. How do you like build portfolio that's going to like make an impact? How do you get in contact with these people? What are the different ways that you can make money off of your art? Like how much should you be charging? And like all of those kind of like things. Not the line should have been here instead of there. Like
right.
they'll figure that out on their own, kind of a thing. And like I don't know. And artists are inherently sensitive people. You have to go to kind of a sensitive place to be able to create. So it's like I'd like to see more encouragement and like uplifting of people and keeping them in the arts instead of tearing them down so much in like art school that they end up never touching art again because they're so turned off from it. I think
Oh,
that's one of the saddest things that I've heard, like feedback wise, of like how some people feel towards creativity after they've done formal training.
I think just for the sake of conversation here, I can attest to that. Definitely going through the whole art college and things like that. Yes, there were times that my professors were hypercritical of me and things like that, but looking back on it now, a decade after the fact, they weren't being hypercritical. They were trying to push me to a new limit and out of my comfort zone. Because once you get out of that comfort zone, that's when the real creative juices start flowing and you really start cultivating and moving in a new direction. I think one of the greatest quotes that I ever got from a professor was, Crystal, you can't stay stagnant because that's when you fall apart and you fall into a rut. You have to push forward and move into different things and move in different ways. And I've always kind of stuck with that. And yes, it does make me sad to hear that some of your friends don't want to touch art now, but I can also attest to being, very sensitive creatures. I think we are. We look at things in a different way and we process them differently than somebody who maybe doesn't do art or doesn't really think about it in that way. So yes,
Yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming from. But hats off to you for not paying for that formal education and doing it anyway. I mean, isn't that the artist life? Isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like too as like a working artist and stuff, you kind of what you're saying on like going off of that, it's like you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because yeah, like if you do get comfortable, then you do get stagnant or and it's not that there'll inherently be anything wrong with your art, but if you're not constantly kind of pushing those limits or stuff, that's where I don't know, it might hinder a little bit of like evolving
Right.
as like an artist and stuff where Yeah, I kind of have like I have like my go-to shots kind of where I'm like, okay, I know this is gonna look good. I know this approach is gonna work, and then I also have the ones where I'm like, huh, we're gonna jump into Lake Superior and see how this works.
Yes. I still can't believe you did that, and it was not warm outside by any means, and you just dove in. Like
Yeah, I was
with your
kind of. I remember dressing myself that day, like before I left, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I heard a little voice was like, "You should wear running shorts. You're gonna get in the lake." And then I was like, "No, no, I'm not. It's kind of cold out." So I put on a jumper or like a body or not like a yeah like a what are those called? Where it's like it's not a romper, it's longer.
yeah, a jumper.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, and I put one of those on and then ended up having to roll like all the way up so that it wasn't like dragging in the water. And then I had the thought come back when I was like in the water. I was like, "See, should have wore the running shorts. Like it would have dried a lot better."
Well, that was still one of the coolest things I've ever seen. That was awesome, and the shots came out absolutely phenomenal. I follow you on Instagram and Facebook, and right after you had posted those, I was like, yeah, that paid off.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thanks.
Keely, can we jump into kind of the business side of things? You had mentioned earlier about, charging for your work. And from my own testament, I've actually never charged for my work. I've kind of been of the caliber, if you like it, pay me. If not, okay. But that's my own ditty. But kind of charging for your work, was that kind of, did you have to bounce off of what other people were charging? Was that something that you kind of navigated yourself? Did you reach out to your mentors for that? How did the
Um,
business side of things come together for you?
I mean, I'm definitely still figuring that out myself right now because I mean, working within the music industry and like working with other artists, I mean, there's a level of sustainability that I need myself to be able to do it because it's like, okay, if I'm taking a show or a gig, like as much as I want to just help you out and do it for free, that's me turning down like I could be maybe working like a serving job or something where it's like I'm and it's a lot of time and work and effort and stuff and then so there it does come to that point when you're doing it so often where it's like, yeah, if you're starting to ask me, I do need to start charging just because you're taking time off and whatnot. But you also don't want to charge too much because they're artists themselves. It's you want to find kind of like a happy medium balance. So I kind of just communicated with them and like started coming up with rates that I was like, okay, I kind of think that this is fair. But I have been always very open with them. I'm like, is this affordable for you? Is this manageable? And um, so yeah, that feedback back and forth with them has helped me kind of find a fair rate. And then um, I also am willing to kind of, smudge those margins a little bit. Like if it's maybe a little bit too much for them at that time, I might lower it a little bit so that they still can like work with me and we'll figure it out kind of a thing. And what's what's also really helped make this sustainable is like I'll get contracted out by like the North, or I just started working with the Current, where they're outlets that have larger budgets. So then if like that's kind of where it's like, or I've worked with like a few brands in the past and stuff. So it's if I can kind of get some of those high ticket gigs, then I can keep my rates lower for other artists and stuff. So it's definitely still a learning game with that and seeking out like those, yeah, figuring out how to make it sustainable for myself but also fair for everybody. And yeah, I mean now I do ask around a little bit more now, being like, hey, how much should I be charging for this, or hey, like is this fair, like for everybody kind of a thing, not just like with who I'm working with, but yeah, other people that are either in the industry or I even have friends that have been on marketing teams and stuff, and I'll ask them to look over contracts for me, like when I'm working with larger entities, and be like, hey, is there anything that's kind of, is this good? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I think this is all right, but like, can you like look this over because you write these contracts? And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just it's yeah, I'm still figuring out, but it is that's a process itself, I guess.
Right, right. It is a process, definitely.
Yeah. I
Definitely.
also have like started looking into grants
Mm-hmm.
as well because I have like some other like kind of passion project ideas that I would like to do and to get like again it's going to be time consuming and stuff so to get funding for those so that I can do them and like yeah or in the past like I've my friend Emma Jean I work with her quite a bit. She won the Palomino grant, and that grant helped funded some of the work that we've done together. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that it kind of all comes together.
Yeah, definitely. You had mentioned earlier that you kind of got some of those bigger ticket people. So you work with the current and a couple other businesses in town. Did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? How did that culminate? How did that come together?
They reached out to me. Um, I had gotten an email from Reed over at the Current, and he asked if I wanted to be a contributor, and he said that I'd been referred to them, and my name had been getting around and stuff, and I found out that it was from Mark Niklowski. He put in a good word for me with the Current, and he's one of the board members over at Sacred Heart, and I like have done some volunteer work over there, so again, like the support of the community where it just kind of all trickles down, like people I've worked with in the past or people that have believed like in my work and then will put my name in some pretty cool rooms.
Yes, it's one thing that I've found about Duluth is it's definitely a word of mouth situation still, which
Yeah,
I think is really cool. I mean, word of mouth is great, and sometimes it runs even faster than social media. So,
yeah,
excellent either way. Wonderful.
yeah.
Kaylee, if
Like I
someone
still don't have a website and I've which is like kind of baffling as like a digital creator and I just still don't have a website and I like joke about that to some of my friends, and they're like, "You've made your entire career this so far without having it," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it is all word of mouth." Like,
right.
so it's just cool, but I should probably do that.
Well, you know, here throughout my time being in marketing and things like that, websites are almost becoming obsolete in a way. So if you've been able to make your career work without one, why have the added expense? I guess is kind of what I pose to people. So
Yeah, that's kind of it's that, and it's just like it's time consuming, to sit down and build one. Where I'm like, that's why it just keeps getting put to the back burner. Because I'm like, well, if I'm still getting stuff, like still getting hired without it, I'm like, and that would take away time from everything.
right,
But
right, very
I'll
true.
probably make one eventually. We'll see. It's kind of funny now at this point. Like, I'm kind of just like, I wonder how long I can get away,
Right.
or how long, yeah, I can go
Yeah.
without it.
Oh, fabulous. Kaylee, if somebody's interested in hiring you out for a photography project or video project, how can they do that?
I mean, you could reach out to me on social media. I have my email on like my pages as well, so you could reach out to me from like um on email on those pages. I have my number um listed as well, so people could call me. Yeah, yeah, any way that you would get in touch with somebody, just shoot me a message.
All right, excellent, wonderful. And you're open to negotiation for price wise and things like that. You had mentioned a little earlier that you were gearing up for the festival season before the pandemic hit. Do you go to more local festivals? Or are you going to the bigger festivals? What does the festival season kind of look like for you?
Right now I'm still sticking pretty regional. A lot of times, like I'll just either go with a group, um, but I'm hoping that as like my career is growing, that I'll land myself on the actual photo teams for festivals and like maybe get the opportunity to travel a little bit more. Um, but yeah, right now it's pretty local, like between Wisconsin and Minnesota, and well, we'll see how that evolves.
I'm sure it'll evolve wonderfully for you. Word through the grapevine is there's going to be a lot more festivals happening now that kind of people have a handle on the pandemic. But we'll
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. Winter's showing up first, and then we'll move on to festival season. So.
Yeah.
Well, Kaylee, it's been absolutely wonderful to speak with you. You're an absolute gem. Thank you so much for
Oh,
taking
thanks.
time out of your day to talk with me in the wider world about your photography and your art as a whole. If anybody's interested in hiring out Kaylee, you can reach her on her social media.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. This has been fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.